I adore language, characters, accents, tone, idioms, pun, just all of those moments where serendipity and wit comes into play. I have a particular fascination with idioms. I have deaf parents and grew up using Auslan, and in Auslan there are no idioms. So if you say he kicked the bucket, he did. And if you say the grass is greener, it is. And if you say, well, it's not rocket science, it's like, well, yeah, okay. And while I like most idioms, I've always had this particular gripe and confusion with the phrase, she's the cat's mother. Probably from the time that my grandmother scornfully said it, and I felt shocked and I felt shame. There was an air of scolding and superiority in the room, and she seemed to relish the fact that she'd said something so obscure to a 6-year-old child. I mean, what was it with these phrases that meant nothing? It's like nice boys have parts. As time went on, I heard it then and again, and it wasn't until I was about 12 years old that a teacher finally explained to me that it meant that it's rude to refer to somebody as he, she, or they when they're in the room. And I remember thinking, well, why don't they just say that? What about she's the cat's mother has anything to do with that? It started me on this lifelong inquiry and experimentation with she's the cat's mother. I started to think during my teens, why she's the cat's mother? Was it that we only made this faux pas in the presence of women? Was it okay for me to use it in the presence of a he or a they? I began to experiment. I waited for the opportunity to arise when a male was referred to as he. It actually took some time. But when it happened, I boldly declared, she's the cat's mother. It landed with a bit of a thud, but I think that phrase generally does. So I wasn't sure if it was because of the phrase or because it was inappropriate to use in that moment. I then thought, I don't really like that it's so female-oriented. There should be some tit for tat. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to introduce a new idiom. He's the cat's father. And so I waited again until the opportunity to use this new idiom. And when it came up, I said, he's the cat's father. But then I had to explain why I was using it and encourage the people I'd said it to spread it forward. But I still haven't heard it in the vernacular. Then in my 30s, I finally did some research and I Googled it. I Googled, why do we say she's the cat's mother? And I discovered that the name of a female cat is actually she. And so the cat's mother's name is she. But also, I guess, the cat's daughter, and by extension, any female cat. And so then why isn't the phrase, she is the name of a female cat? And in the same bout of research, I also discovered that the name of a male cat is Tom. And then I got this joy and delight as the revelation came to me that actually the new idiom that I should introduce in the case of a male being referred to as he when he's in the room should be, Tom's the cat's father. And so I waited on the edge of my proverbial seat for this moment. And when I was 37... I was standing at work in a circle of my colleagues and someone referred to the male on my left as he, and all of this joy rushed up my body and I shouted, Tom's the cat's father. And what was amazing about it was the guy's name was Tom. I was in hysterics. I laughed so hard. It took me so long to finally explain to them why I had shouted this out. And it was basically telling the whole story that I've just told you now. But it was such a moment of pure delight and pure joy, and then everyone around me was laughing. And I just think it's so cool that this phrase that once gave me shame and confusion somehow worked its way throughout my life to become this moment of just pure joy and delight. And I actually haven't used it since. But if you'd like to pass it on, feel free. Thank you.